Switched on IT is proudly brought to you by Oz Hosting, Cloud Made Easy.
Welcome to Switched on IT. I'm Barry. This is the show where we talk about everything IT. This month in the United States is Cybersecurity Month, or Cybersecurity Awareness Month, actually, I think it's called. And on today's show, Doug and Ray are going to talk about the issues around cybersecurity, in particular cybersecurity for small business. Now, particularly during this pandemic, we have seen an increasing number of attacks on businesses and governments and major state actors. And one of the things that is a topic that is very current is the inability for some businesses to mitigate the problems with the attacks on them. I've heard stories about the kinds of emails that are being sent to businesses, and quite apart from the fact that if you fall into the traps of some of these emails, it can be very costly. Just mitigating the things that keep coming all the time is costly in terms of time. And of course, small businesses are always time poor. So today, Doug and Ray, who are with us now, are going to discuss this topic. We'll go and meet them now. Good morning, Ray.
Good evening.
Yeah, yes, it's your evening. And good morning, Doug.
Morning, Barry.
Ray, talk to us about cybersecurity, as I was just saying and as we were saying in the pre-show off camera. Cybersecurity, particularly today, is becoming a huge issue, and of course for you there in the United States, this month has a particular focus on cybersecurity. So what are the sorts of things that we should be looking for?
Yeah, so this is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. The National Cybersecurity Alliance, as well as the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency in the U.S. federal government, they host this month every year in October to just bring awareness for people about cybersecurity issues. And my company, W3 Consulting, is one of the ambassadors. They call them champions for Cybersecurity Month. So we're out there talking to folks about this, and it's just, I think, a good thing for us all to do. In digital marketing, you should be worried about security. In productivity, you should be thinking about security. In human resources, you should be thinking about security. In every part of operations today, none of it is untouched by being connected to the web and being connected to other devices. And so that does mean we need to be more cautious. And really, the statistics bear themselves out. The unfortunate part is that while an Equifax hack, data breach is big news, and Target's breach, and all of these other, Marriott, through their acquisition, they got breached. All of these big companies get a lot of public relations, publicity in talking about these things. But when we think about the small hacks across all of the millions of small businesses around the world, we're talking about millions, if not $1 billion, in lost revenues from these small businesses, and they don't get the kind of coverage because, they're small businesses. They're not big names in the world, and we all have to be conscious of the fact that, you may see a multi-million-dollar ransomware attack against a company, and they have to pay it. They have the funds to be able to do that. But if you get hit with a ransomware attack, can you afford $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 ransom that some of these ransom folks are asking for? Will that put you out of business? And if the answer is yes on any of those counts, then you should be working as best as you can to use the technology to your best ability to stay cyber secure. And so that's really the point and message behind this. It's also good for marketing to be cyber aware and to be cyber resilient. It's also good for operations, for greater productivity. All of these things have a positive impact on you when you focus on cybersecurity. So that's really the course and kind of tenor of our conversation today. And let's start off with, Doug, what are some of the things that you see people doing in their own businesses that kind of open themselves up for risk? What are those like main level things that you really see people right now making mistakes making mistakes in a cybersecurity sense, in a digital security sense?
Sure. I think one of the most frequent things is when small businesses lose control of one of their email accounts. So I guess it's like identity compromise. And the scenario is that a bad actor has got into somebody's device. Maybe they don't have the device very secure. Maybe they might consider things like a virtual private network, or they might consider things like setting up two-factor authentication, but they haven't because maybe it's a little bit too hard, or it's inconvenient, or it's expensive to have the kind of risk mitigation strategies that they really need. And then we see things like identity theft, and then the next thing you know, that business, a key person in that business might be sending out bogus invoices in the company name. Often they look absolutely perfect. The amounts are perfect. What they're billing for is perfect. It's just that the bank account that the money that's getting paid by the customer to the business is being substituted with another bank account, and then people start losing money. That would be one of the most common things that we're seeing. But also, of course, it relates to companies' digital assets, and particularly their websites, and not having adequate protection on those. So there's a couple of levels there. But I would say certainly what we're seeing in small business in Australia, I would say a compromised business identity is the most common attack surface that is being compromised, and then the other area would be the injection of ransomware. So a whole platform, a whole system being compromised, encrypted, locked up, and then the bad actor coming back and saying we'll unlock it for you for a fee. And at the moment we're seeing quite a significant escalation in this. I know even last night I was trying to contact the motor the motor registration office in New South Wales in Australia, and one of the messages just as the in the online wait queue was, we've been targeted by a Chinese organisation, or attacks are coming through from China, and that has affected our ability to operate our systems at the moment, and you may be experiencing delays because of this attack. And I just thought that's an extraordinary thing to say in the messages on hold, that we're actually under attack from a foreign nation right now, and it's affecting our ability to deliver the services. I thought it was extraordinary.
Looking for exposure for your next event or function? Take your next community event, training seminar, sports event, official opening, function, concert or exhibition live to the world with PTV Channel O and Power FM's unique live simulcast. We can turn your next local event into a worldwide sensation for a fraction of what you would expect to pay. No matter what the event, PTV Channel O and Power FM can take your message to our audience. Invite the world to your party by phoning 0431 390 920 or email feedback@ptvchannelo.com.
Digital marketing at A1 Supercheap Tyres is paramount. With having local search on board, they're definitely a part of our business. They are like having a marketing team of your own. It's by far the most important thing to this business and surviving and growing.
Power FM is total entertainment, from the morning drive with Fiona and Jeff to the drive home with Jeff Black. On the weekends, catch the Crazy Kevin Show, Dennis Mitchell's Breakfast with the Beatles, the Semi-Pro Sports Show, and Racing Nation with James O'Shea, plus the music you grew up with. Keep your radio dial locked on Toowoomba's Power FM, celebrating 10 years. You'll find us at 88.0 on the FM dial, or online at www.powerfmradio.com.au.
Drought, fires and flood have made running a business in regional Australia hard work. Each week on PTV Channel O, On the Spot will bring you a business that's doing it tough out there and share their stories of struggle and success. Find out who's doing what they offer and how they can help you for your next project, adventure, vacation or night out. On the Spot, every Thursday at 7 p.m. on ptvchannelo.com or download the PTV Channel O app and take us with you wherever we go. Discover a whole new world of entertainment at ptvchannelo.com.
But anyway, so I want to keep the discussion on the small business area, and that's where I would say it's the compromise of a staff member's identity, and it's the attacks on their systems, and the use of ransomware would be the two most common things that are costing them the most amount of money. So Ray, back to you on this, and I think we're going to have a sort of a general discussion on what are the sort of the big things that people can do, and this probably goes well beyond their small business experience. Just as a human being in the world right now, what are the things that we need to be conscious of, and what can we do? And then maybe we can sort of tighten in and look at small business and say, for these sorts of events, what are the best risk mitigation strategies there?
Yeah, so if we think about this from kind of a top level perspective, most small business owners have to take into account that whether you have one employee or 500 employees, when you're dealing with small numbers, right? That kind of under 500 employees, you probably know half of the people in your company. You know them by name, those kinds of things, and many times you have a tight connection to a family member, right? If your company's one or two, three people in size, it's likely that your family member has access to your physical access to your devices. They sometimes have digital access to different parts of the business. And it's really important to remember that your cybersecurity bleeds out, right? The attack surface, as we call it, the area on which a malware attacker, a cyber criminal in essence, can get access to you, is also through your family members. And that could be teenage children, it could be a spouse, it could be a partner, it could be those kinds of people. Then we broaden that to employees. Employees are and staff are obviously a huge risk factor in the business because they are in the trenches doing the work and accessing systems at various times throughout the day. Vendors, as well as customers and clients, past customers and existing customers, right? So we have to be very mindful of the fact that all of the stakeholders in the business, including yourself, need to take, kind of be mindful of the fact that you're all in this together, right? And so rising tides lift all ships when it comes to small business. When I help you be more secure, you're actually helping me be more secure. Because when you send me that phishing email and I open it because I trust you, and you haven't done the right things to mitigate it, then like DMARC and SPF policies on your email, then you're doing me a disservice. I have to trust you and you have to trust me that we're going to do the right things to protect each other. And so we're all in this together globally, and that's really the core message that I have behind this. You need to educate your spouse, you need to educate your family, you need to educate other people around you about what they can be doing to be more resilient online, and that's going to help you run a more effective and more productive business. So that's kind of the first thing. Of course, as Doug noted, we have a lot of different types of cyber attacks, and phishing attacks, spear phishing, as well as whaling attacks, different variations of social engineering that get access to information about you that then leads to someone getting in your system with, say, ransomware or other kinds of malware, are all things that we should be paying attention to, and are really our biggest threats right now, right? Because from a phishing attack, we can then that can lead us to what Doug is talking about, where someone basically gets access to an email account and is able to redirect funds, is able to really manipulate people into further and greater damage to the business. So the things that we can do on a very broad level are so varied. I'll bring a couple, and I'm sure Doug has some as well. One, update your operating systems. So all devices that you have, literally every device that can think, including refrigerators. If your refrigerator has a system board that you interact with, then it also has an operating system. It probably is running RTOS, which is the real-time operating system. It's probably running RTOS. You have lots of devices around you where you should make sure that if it's possible, that you are going ahead and updating those operating systems to keep them secure. Recently, there was a whole attack earlier this year, or maybe latter part of last year. There was parking meters, which also run on RTOS, this operating system that's on these parking meters. They're wirelessly connected, and they got hacked. Such simple things that are in our ambient world. All the Internet of Things devices, right? If you have some, Amazon devices with the Madam A, assistants on them. If you have Google devices in your home, if you have Apple devices in your home, where you talk to Big G, you talk to Big S, and you get them to do things, then you need to make sure that they are fully up to date. Because that's going to be your first level of defense. Those companies, those major technology companies, are updating your systems, Windows, your Mac OS, Android, and iOS. They're updating those systems to make sure that they can patch security holes in their system. So the more up to date you can keep your software in terms of security, the more likely you are to hold yourselves well guarded from those things. So that's number one. Number two is think about the backup situation. You should have some kind of backup situation, and I have done lots and lots of discussions about backups over the years. So if anybody is interested in learning more about backups, I have hours of me talking about backups. So just feel free to touch base with Barry, and I'm happy to send those resources over to you. Then, of course,
Ray,
backup.
Just tell us, is there a link that we can put up on the screen for people to see?
There was a podcast series where I did like 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours, I think, of me talking about all the various backup strategies. So if anybody is interested, I can pull the link to that. I did it on a colleague's podcast, so I can find that and send that along to you.
Yep.
Okay, so and maybe I can make a short URL to it. I can probably create a short URL for that. But anyway, if we want to go beyond backups, then the next step is any level of cybersecurity training that you can do. Every dollar you spend on cybersecurity training is an exponential number of dollars that you're saving yourself from any future attack. Right, so there are all kinds of folks who have put calculations together of how many dollars you're saving and that kind of thing. There's really no justifiable way to determine that. I guess you could take averages of the average, SMB cybersecurity incident, and then backwards, calculating the value of it. But if you spend $1 on cybersecurity training, that is a heck of a lot better than spending $10 to $100 to $1,000 in terms of impact. So spend money on cybersecurity training to make sure that you and your staff have an ongoing understanding of what's necessary to stay safe, whether that be phishing training, identifying links. We were talking pre-show, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Doug, earlier, but the idea of getting SMS or text messages with links in them and avoiding those things. Never click on a link in a text message. I'm sorry, just never. It's just a bad practice. I know that some people do that in legitimate applications. There have got to be better ways to be able to do that kind of verification of systems. Some systems send codes that can be a little bit less, onerous on security. But the reality is that there are lots of ways in which messages can come out there, and you need to be very mindful that before you click, just hovering your finger on the link to see what actually shows up. Is what you're hovering over in terms of a link, is it actually what you believe you're going to, or is it some gobbledygook link that says google.com, but really what it says is some variation of Google, like with 3 O's, or it says apple.com, but it's missing the E in Apple. You have to be mindful of the things you're clicking on. You can't really be, on autopilot and just clicking around on things. It really does require that every time you open up your email inbox, every time you get a message from someone on Facebook, every time you get an SMS message, that if you have to click on something to get somewhere, you should be very cautious about what you're clicking on, because that could be the incident that brings your company down. Doug, what are some things that you can offer to folks in terms of just best practices for keeping people cyber resilient.
When the going gets tough, advertising is a must. Thousands of potential customers make buying decisions every day based on advertising they've seen or heard on radio and television. Are you losing sales because potential customers don't know what you offer? Get your business, product or service in front of thousands of potential customers with a joint advertising package on Power FM and PTV Channel O. Capture a multimedia audience with our affordable radio, TV media advertising package. Stay ahead of the pack by contacting Barry on 0431 390 920 or email feedback@ptvchannelo.com or Jeff at powerfmtoowoomba@gmail.com.
Have you got a wedding, birthday, corporate event, or even a school disco coming up? Well, make your special occasion memorable. A professional DJ and compere really makes a difference, so go crazy! With Crazy Kevin, International DJ. He's available for all your entertainment needs. Just call 0459 336 832 or email crazykevindj@gmail.com.
Digital marketing at A1 Supercheap Tyres is paramount. With having local search on board, they're definitely a part of our business. They are like having a marketing team of your own. It's by far the most important thing to this business and surviving and growing.
Power FM is total entertainment. From the morning drive with Fiona and Jeff to the drive home with Jeff Black. On the weekends, catch the Crazy Kevin Show, Dennis Mitchell's Breakfast with the Beatles, the Semi-Pro Sports Show, and Racing Nation with James O'Shea, plus the music you grew up with. Keep your radio dial locked on Toowoomba's Power FM, celebrating 10 years. You'll find us at 88.0 on the FM dial or online at www.powerfmradio.com.au.
I think one of the most important, one of the most frequent attack vectors that we're seeing is basically identity theft of a user account for the business email service, and that is one of the most dangerous events that a business can experience. To be able to mitigate that threat, there's a number of different paths they can use, whatever email system that they're on. I'd certainly recommend that they enable multi-factor authentication. So what that does is as most of us are familiar with that now with online banking, where you get the text message from the bank with the code that you've got to key into the web interface to proceed with the transaction. It's the same thing. So I know one of the things that makes small businesses fearful of enabling multi-factor authentication is that they're concerned that it's just going to interrupt them every time they go to log into their email system. They're going to have their mobile phone handy and key in a code and all those sorts of things. It actually only works that way if you're logging in through a browser interface, and then when you're logging in through a browser interface, well, the mail server at the other end doesn't know whether you're on your own PC or, in a hotel using another PC, or it's a bad actor, or what it is. So every time there's a browser login, it's got to use multi-factor authentication. But if it's your desktop computer that you use in your office every day, you can use multi-factor authentication to authenticate your desktop computer. So when that fires up the email client that you use to read your email, be it Apple Mail or Microsoft Outlook or something like that, because it's launching on a device that's already authenticated, you don't have to go through the multi-factor authentication step every time. It's already done. So I would certainly say enabling multi-factor authentication for your email service, and potentially the services that are integrated with the email service. So that might be a file storage service such as Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, that will then start to protect all of those things. And then there's another level up from that that people can enable, and that's, for example, in Australia, where the Microsoft 365 suite is very popular. There's a very inexpensive add-on which is called Advanced Threat Protection, ATP. It is $2.70 a month plus GST, so it's a pretty trivial cost. What that allows you to do is also enable a number of security policies. So, for example, you may want to prevent any staff member from setting up a rule where when an email comes in, it is automatically forwarded to an external email party, and maybe you could create a rule, or you certainly can create a rule where that email may go and retrieve a particular file from your OneDrive account. It could be a customer list, or it could be customer invoices, or something like that. Now, you can understand that if a bad actor got in and set up some rules where every invoice your business ever created was automatically picked up and emailed to a Gmail account in Eastern Europe or something like that, that could do an enormous amount of damage to the business. So you need to be able to set up policies where you say, all right, well, we're certainly going to allow, Doug to send an email to the company accountant. That's an internal email, and we can automate those procedures so that they might pick up a particular file from OneDrive. It might be, a bank statement that's automatically been added there or something like that. That's quite harmless. But a lot of harm can be done when these things are going outside the organisation. So with the advanced threat protection, I won't go through all the different potential policy settings you can create, but there's a lot of them, and when you work through them, they're quite sort of readily understandable. You can understand how things can go, totally pear-shaped if you don't get these things right. And that's quite easy to set them up. I'd probably recommend that small businesses engage somebody with familiarity with that particular service to take them through the setup process, because otherwise they could easily waste a day noodling through it. But in actual fact, you can probably set one up in 30 to 60 minutes for the entire organisation. So I'd certainly recommend going beyond multi-factor authentication and using one of these policy setting tools to give you some added protection, not just over your email, but also on the family jewels, which is oftentimes everything that's in the file storage system that's got the company's history of invoices and contracts and those sorts of assets as well.
Doug, as you're talking about ATP, then I'm glad you suggested that businesses talk to somebody that knows what they're doing. If a business wants to do that, wants to set up an ATP and doesn't want to spend the money, how do they go about doing that?
Well, all they need to do, for example, with ATP, they just need to have global admin and log into the security and compliance area of that particular control panel. And then, I think just be prepared to spend a fair amount of time understanding the capabilities of the service. There'll be a lot of sort of online educational resources that are there in that page that you can sort of click out of and start reading up on it. And that's all there under the bonnet. They can access that at any time. I would say my experience with small business operators is that they're not prepared to invest the time in unless something dreadful has happened. But the information is there. They can certainly DIY, but if they value their time and the cost of their time, they're probably going to, as we call it, diff them, do it for me, find somebody that can diff them.
Yep, and we're talking about internet security rights, so it's in their hosting control panel.
Yes, it'll be in the control panel of the platform that they're using, and I think this would apply mostly to a G Suite user or a Microsoft 365 user.
Right. Okay.
So I want us to move along in this as we come to the close, kind of talking about some of the things people can do since we are in this period where people are going through various lockdowns and having to isolate and sometimes go into quarantine when they are becoming infected and these kinds of things. So businesses are having to be kind of adaptive to the changing threat landscape because their employees are maybe working from home or working from remote locations. I know a lot of people who have, in essence, because their companies have allowed them to, they've gone remote in one company, and maybe they're a multinational corporation, and now they're allowing their employees to go work from anywhere in the world. And that, of course, creates a whole new kind of risk. And some of the things that people can do in order to mitigate that risk as a business, I always think about both firewalls and VPNs in this particular case. Now, they are not panaceas, but they are great levels of security above not having them. And so I've been making recommendations of two particular products for those businesses where if you are a business owner and you're working from home ever, you should not be using the home network just like it's your kingdom. This is an external network that is open, through your home, usually your home internet connection, and that is a naked network. You think you have security on that network, but I'll just being blunt, you don't. Those systems that are connected on residential lines have very minimal security. The Wi-Fi usually is pumping out an SSID, and give me 20 minutes and the right software, and I can probably crack into your network. So do not think that your router is something that is a secure space. So I've been making some recommendations to folks to be able to do that. So you and any staff member that is working anywhere other than within the firewall of your enterprise should have a firewall on your home router. And that's usually not the router firewall, but an additional router that you have dedicated to it. Now, there are a couple things you can use. One is a pfSense. You can actually take an existing computer, maybe an old computer you have sitting around, and put pfSense on it. So pfSense is a piece of software. It's open source, and in essence, you can install the software, and it actually then mediates. It creates this firewall, right? Like think of a physical wall, but it's creating one digitally, where you can then control and see what is happening on the network when people access it. And this allows you to be able to control various ports, certain types of services that are being transited from those devices out to the world. So it can block a lot of threats that may be coming after your computer because it knows your computer is valuable and is going around looking for that on the network. Another tool that is by a private vendor, you can also buy pfSense devices. There are ones that are pre-installed. It allows you, a gigabit network. You can plug it into your office or home, and it does really well, and they're pretty low cost. Firewall is like the next layer to that, which is Firewall is a company that is literally a firewall box. Its only purpose is to do protection, and so you can actually install one of various different types of firewalls. Firewall has an A at the end, so it's like firewall and then add an A, and so they come from as low as $80 US up to $300-400 US, I think, for the gold version. But they go from like a blue to a red, or red to blue, and then yellow, and then gold. But they're different layers and different speeds of network that you need to manage. But it's really, really easy. I mean, you just plug it in and you go. Now, the great part about the firewall is that it actually gives you a VPN, a free VPN for you to be able to access by virtue of the system. And so now when you go out there into the wild, you can take your mobile device, you can take your tablet, laptop, whatever, go to a cafe, and when possible, connect to your hotspot, right? Don't connect to the Wi-Fi in the public cafe. But if you have to, like you're just forced to have to use that public cafe or that airport Wi-Fi, please don't. But if you do, you have Firewall to be able to connect through. It's going to be a little bit slower than connected to a high-speed internet system, but it's going to protect your data by VPNing through the firewall or the Firewall network. So it's really powerful to be able to give you that kind of security, and it's just built into the purchase price of the Firewall. So that's really great for you to be able to do. Doug, what are some other things people can do in terms of physical security as it relates to their digital devices? And then I guess we should probably start to wrap up.
In terms of physical security, I'd say one of the most important, easiest things that anyone can do is when you walk away from your desktop computer for lunch or for a meeting, or to leave work at the end of the day, or leave the office and walk upstairs at the end of the day, which is what is happening in Australia a lot at the moment. Turn it off. Just disable the devices that are not in use. So the attack surface goes from, yes, I've got multi-factor authentication protecting, which is better than this, but if it's switched off, then there's not much that anyone can do. Another thing that we can consider in terms of, particularly with people operating from home, and I can see that as a real risk that you've touched on there. The other thing is to potentially limit the devices that can access your network by locking it down to an authenticated known MAC address. So every device that can connect to your local area network will have a MAC address, and you can actually configure the router or the switch that you're using in your network to only accept a connection from an authorized MAC address, and then that makes it doubly difficult for an external party to be able to access you as well. So that is something that can sit on top of a VPN connection or something like that. But that's a pretty simple and easy thing to do. I know I use it myself. It does annoy my kids when people come in and they go, "Oh, Fred can't connect to the network," and that's because Fred, their friend, is our system doesn't know the MAC address. But that's another kind of simple, easy thing to do, which can have quite a significant improvement in your risk mitigation.
Yeah, many times greater cybersecurity equates to less convenience, but we can't think that a little bit of inconvenience for the benefits of not being attacked and the loss of productivity, the loss of financial, the financial impact on that. All of those things are kind of paltry comparative, in terms of inconvenience comparative to the losses that you can have. So I'm very much, if you need, a shot in the arm to implement these things, just start Googling the various types of attacks and what kind of damage those things have been done. I was just recently listening into a very popular female executive here in the United States, and how she was tricked. This very complicated phishing attack, but eventually she actually went to the bank and got a wire transfer, and she sent a wire transfer to this illegitimate, bad actor, this cyber criminal, all from the perspective that she was sending money, as a part of her normal business operations to it. And it started with a phishing email, right? They socially engineered her into thinking that she was doing the right things. And it was like $100,000 she just sent off to nobody, not to nobody, some criminal. And she put $100,000 in their pocket, so, the reality is that it's very easy to lose money online with these kinds of cyber incidents. And so hopefully this discussion at least puts you on alert as to the fact that there are a lot of them out there. This stuff is now a business. So think about it from the perspective that there are some people who, work a 9 to 5 and go and push paper. There are people all around the globe who show up for a 9 to 5 and they're looking for your business. They're looking for low-hanging fruit. They're looking for people to be able to hack into. They work a 9 to 5, and unfortunately, what their job is to do something illegal in many of these countries, but may not be illegal in their country. So that's just a reality factor. There are certain places where they show up and they're in just like a phone call center. They're just in a big, office with lots of computers, and all they're doing all day is running software to try and hack into your computer. So when this has become a business, we all need to take the best defenses against these kinds of attacks. And so hopefully this kind of unearthed for you a little bit of energy, a little bit of motivation to be able to go out there and do the right things to create the right cybersecurity policies, the right digital device policies, and using the right tools and technology to be able to be more cyber resilient.
Terrific. Okay, I think there's a lot of information for people to digest in there, and probably in this day and age, this is a subject that we ought to come back to and revisit again in another session. But that's been a good session. Ray Sidney-Smith, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
And Doug Endersby from Oz Hosting in Sydney, thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
All right. We will see you again next week. You've been watching Switched on IT. We have been talking today about cybersecurity. This is a particularly important issue at the moment, not just from the perspective of big business, but from the perspective of small business as well. Now, this discussion may have raised some issues for you. It may have raised questions in your mind. There may be things that you want to follow up. Please be sure that you contact us either through our email or through our contact form on the website. Anything that you have a concern about or that you would like Doug and Ray to follow up on, make sure that you send us an email or a contact, let us know, and we'll pass that information on and get our experts to deal with those issues for you. This has been another session that will go on to our video on demand, so if you missed any of this show in the live broadcast, you can always go back and pick it up again later in the video on demand. And of course, that's true for all of our shows, not just Switched on IT, but for everything. So this has been Barry for Switched on IT. We will see you again next week. Until then, stay safe, and not only safe from COVID-19, but stay safe in your internet and your online security as well.